be a full-time job for me on day one. I will be wrapping up my practice by the end of the year. In deciding to run for this office, that was my most daunting decision to make, was whether I wanted to leave private practice or not. I came to Vinton County a new lawyer. I built a business here. I went from the shoebox I had across from the courthouse to the office I have now. I've built my client base. I identify with my business as something I have accomplished over the years and something I'm proud to contribute to the community. However, I do not feel that I can serve that client base and serve the voters at the same time. I don't think it's fair to my clients. I don't think it's fair to my voters. And so therefore, in going through this process of deciding to run, I had to take a hard look at whether or not I wanted to leave my clients, my private practice. And it took me about 4 months to come to a decision on that. And ultimately the decision was made for me because I realized I'm not leaving my clients. They're my same clients, they're my same neighbors, they're my same friends. I'll just be representing them in a different capacity called public service. And I'm ready for that, and that's something I want to work with them to do. So once I came to the realization that I could leave my office, I made the decision to run for prosecutor, and as a result, I will be a full-time prosecutor. It is a full-time job. It should have always been a full-time job. It should not currently be a part-time job. And so therefore, I will be changing that effective the very first day I have the opportunity to do so.
Shorter answer is yes, full-time. It really has to be, because given the scope of the job, representing the different agencies, prosecuting not only the felonies but the misdemeanors, it really has to be a full-time job. I've been a full-time prosecutor for 14 years, over 14 years, and it's the only way to do it, because you do have to spend time on your own time, off hours. If you're called out, if you receive phone calls from law enforcement, if you do meet with those victims, you have to have a full-time prosecutor in there, because that way when people come in, the prosecutor may be in court, but should be accessible. But the prosecuting attorney also needs to go out, and I've done that by visiting township meetings, meeting with the township trustees, and doing the door-to-door. And with the township trustees, I told them, and I told them I'm going to try to meet with you twice a year at your meetings. So you don't have to come into the courthouse, because for a lot of them, they work a job. And so they want access to the prosecuting attorney. And by going to the meetings twice a year, they have that access. And they have that.
I'm not sure legally there's any difference. We use the word interchangeably, but the county's attorney is the prosecuting attorney. I guess if you want to make any sort of semantics about it, a prosecutor is the person bringing the cases forward on behalf of the state of Ohio, starting the litigation like a plaintiff does in a civil case. So it's the person prosecuting, bearing the burden for proving the charges, moving the case forward, getting the conviction, making the decisions along the way. I guess if you wanted to distinguish, you could say maybe the prosecuting attorney is more encompassing. It's the person who handles all of the legal aspects for the county. The prosecuting attorney represents the trustees, represents the county officials, reviews county contracts. Not only do they prosecute criminal cases, represents children's services. So in the scheme of it, prosecuting murder trials is a very small portion. Not a very small thing, but a very small portion of the workload. On a daily basis, the prosecutor is doing many different things. Criminal cases, contracts, children's services, the whole gamut of work. So I think most people use the words interchangeably in terms of a prosecutor and a prosecuting attorney.
With regard to a prosecutor versus a prosecuting attorney, the prosecutor typically is the one, and is typically looked at as the person who brings the criminal charges, who prosecutes the criminal charges. The prosecuting attorney, the attorney aspect of it, is the attorney for the county, for the trustees, for the commissioners, and reviews the contracts, gives legal advice, represents them in court. Sometimes they don't prosecute cases, they actually defend cases. And sometimes when the commissioners are sued, the prosecuting attorney then does represent them in court as their defense attorney. And the prosecuting attorney does represent Children's Services, MRDD, and all the different boards as well. And you do review contracts. Again, if there are cases that Children's Services has to have brought in court, the prosecuting attorney takes care of those cases as well.
My online docket for municipal court is usually somewhere in the range of 100 to 150 charges a day. I do all felony preliminary hearings before they go to felony prosecution. I work with the felony prosecutor in my office. Once I start the case and hand it off to them, I work with them at the beginning. I've done grand jury in Vinton County. My opponent knows, everybody probably knows, I have not done a murder case in Vinton County. That's no secret. The rules are the same. The rules are the same. The rules of evidence are the same. The criminal rules of procedure are the same. It's the same. It's a different sized courtroom. I haven't let any of you down. In the last 15 years, there's no reason for you to believe that I would bite off something more than I can chew. I've never done that. I've never dropped the ball for you guys. There's no reason to think in a murder trial I would drop the ball. As I indicated and stated already this evening, I have not done a murder trial. There are, if you look at the statistics, there are very few jury trials in southeastern Ohio. I looked at the numbers. There's less than 12 in the whole entire southeastern Ohio, excluding Hamilton County to the west, that go to trial. There are possibilities for help, just like BC&I for the Sheriff's Office. The Attorney General's Office is available for my use, and in fact, under the prior prosecutor, when the McKnight case was prosecutor and I was serving as a special prosecutor at that time, that option was utilized. Right now in Vinton County on the Inman cases, the 3 murder cases, the young lady in the septic tank, you've all heard about it. Those cases are also being facilitated and assisted with the local prosecutor by the Attorney General's office. I'm not naive enough to believe that I'm going to do everything on my own. I have been very good over the years at asking for help when needed, as law enforcement indicated. Also, I have some very good mentors that I've functioned under in my career, and I would trust them to help me as well. So please don't, I've never been irresponsible, I've never been incompetent in a case, and I would not certainly entrust the duty that you're entrusting in me and do the same thing again and do that to you. I mean, I wouldn't do that. I don't want that for my community. I don't want someone who's just going to go willy-nilly and do everything. Are they same as prosecuting? No, there's different timelines, there's different evidence, they're more serious crimes. I'm not suggesting that they're exactly the same, but in terms of litigation and the structure and the rules of the courtroom and the motion filings that you operate under, it's essentially the same type of legal practice, okay? So I'm not afraid to ask for help when needed. I would suggest that if someone says that they're never going to ask for help, they're probably too arrogant to be a prosecutor.
The question initially, if I remember right, was do you have any specialized training to be able to handle these other cases, more complex cases? There's an organization called the Association of Government Attorneys involved with capital litigation. The acronym is AGACL, which is stupid. But I've gone to that death penalty seminar. And what they do there is they train you how to handle a death penalty case. And those are the most complex. And actually in a death penalty case, the prosecutor has to help the defense attorney so that if you get the death penalty, he doesn't come back and the defendant doesn't come back and say, well, ineffective assistance of counsel. They didn't go back to my children's services files and see what a rotten upbringing I had. So there's a significant difference in the cases between the more serious cases and the less serious cases. And so I've been to that death penalty seminar. As far as other training, the National District Attorneys Association, of which I am a member, has training on drug trafficking cases, how to handle drug traffickers, and the different aspects with that. That was a week-long training. It was in a city that I really wish I didn't have to go to because it was in Las Vegas, and I don't gamble, and I don't agree with any of that. But it was a week-long training with the best in the nation on how to handle drug trafficking cases. And so I've got that specialized training, and not only do I have the training, I was able to put that to use in the cases that I've handled and with the murder trials. And actually in the 4 murder trials that I handled, I was lead counsel on 3 of the trials. The 4th one, my boss was involved in it, and my boss was lead counsel, and that's how it always works. But I put those murder trials together, put the evidence together, helped to organize things so that we could put on an effective presentation. It was effective enough. We had 3 guilty findings, and they were all sentenced to life in prison.
Well, I'm confident the office will be running for the first day. And it will actually, if I get elected on November 6th, I will be making the transition prior to that. I intend at this point to already meet with the judges, establish how we want to do the calendars, do court scheduling, and how we want to proceed with grand jury for the next year, and to start working all of that out prior to day 1. Also, I'm extremely confident that the job will be up and running, the office will be up and running and functioning right away. While I'm indicating that I believe there will be a period of time where we will transition, go backwards, look at the backlog, I'm not suggesting that current obligations will be ignored. We will establish a priority system. We'll meet with law enforcement, see what the priorities are. We'll meet with children's services, see what the priorities are. Work there first, and at the same time work to clear the backlog. When I took over the child support contract a few years ago, there was a backlog. I met with the clerk. We discussed ideas on how we can clear this backlog out while at the same time still moving forward. We met, we set up an agenda, we created a plan, and we accomplished our goal, and I believe we got it done faster than we had intended to get it done. So those backlogs exist when political elected officials make the transition from someone outgoing and someone ingoing. It naturally happens irregardless of party and all of those things. But I'm confident that on day 1, we will have already started making that transition, already started reviewing that backlog. I don't think it's a satisfactory stance to say, I'm not going to look at the backlog. Oh, someone reported that case a year ago. I'm not going to look at it. I don't think that's fair. But I've got to, you've got to prioritize, and you've got to go backwards at the same time you're moving forwards. And I believe I can effectively accomplish that day 1, if not sooner.
I feel very confident that I'll be able to be effective in the job from day 1. Given my 14 years as a prosecuting attorney, I know what children's services needs, what they look at, what their concerns are. I haven't yet met with the director out there, but I plan to. I've been going from agency to agency, speaking with the different agency directors, seeing what their concerns are. I believe also in looking at older cases. As I've gone door to door talking with people, they've told me what their concerns are. They've told me, we have this information. You've got video in the cases and even going forward. So you do need to look at all of the cases that you have, even some cold cases. I've talked to an individual about a cold case. Said if I'm elected, I'll look at it come December, because I want to be able to hit the ground running January 7th, 2013. I want to be able to be in that office, know what has to be done, have it all planned out and organized up front so that we can hit the ground running, so that the law, the wheels of justice can move smoothly in this county, so that there won't be a frustrated sheriff in office anymore. But we'll work hand in hand to get these cases moved forward, prosecuted, and dealt with. And hopefully for the murderers, drug traffickers, and other high-level felons, they get to take a trip, courtesy of the state of Ohio, for several years, so we won't have to bother with them. Thank you. The initial thing, a very good friend of mine, her father died in August of 2011. Yes. And that house is in trust. And I leased that house from the trust. It was not in the estate, as somebody claimed that it was. It's in trust. And so I leased that house from the trust, and am living there